Now I want to shift, and it's good timing. I want to shift now to more onto this concept of soil health and soil biology, the more on the angle of compost and worm compost and earthworm castings and compost teas and so forth. So that's what I'm going to segue into. And again, so this information is really valuable across the board. Doesn't matter if you're organic, conventional, sustainable. There's some really dynamic information here to plug into. So the first thing is this concept of soil quality. And the neat thing about this is that this really emerged in the 1990s, and it was widely adapted by USDA soil scientists and the land-grant university soil scientists, is this concept of soil quality. And it's when the three components of the soil, the physical, the chemical, and biological components of the soil are in balance. And it's that sweet spot in the middle where soil quality comes about. And so as a farmer, you're managing this. The physical properties deal with tillage. The biological properties deal with keeping cover crops in, compost and organic matter building in the soil. And the chemical part includes the soil test and balancing your minerals, making sure if you need lime or you need sulfur or whatever, that's all good. You're paying attention to all this. And so, like I said, so it's the sweet spot there. And so, however, and then also in the 1990s, a greater sort of recognition and awareness of soil biology came into the whole ag picture. And by the late 1990s, the USDA NRCS published the Soil Biology Primer, which is a classic in the history of USDA. The chief of NRCS at that time said it was a pivotal shift for the whole agency. And that shift has continued on to this day. Now, NRCS is one of the really great sources for multi-species cover crops in agriculture production. And farmers are doing these cocktail blends of cover crops and really improving soil health, soil biology, and nutrient cycling. So there's a great quote to put this into perspective, and that is that soil microbial biomass is the eye of the needle through which all organic materials that enter the soil must pass. So it tells you a little bit about the importance of that. So let's look at it. So here is a food web pyramid. This is a soil food web that occurs in roughly 1 square yard. So this is 1 square meter, but it's really similar to 1 square yard. And in that is like, I guess that's 10 trillion or 10 quadrillion bacteria and actinomycetes. They're at the base of the soil food web. And so in fact, here's an example. You may have actually done this before. I've done this. And I've actually taken this and looked at it underneath a microscope. Is you go out and you are mowing your yard with a grass catcher. And you take the grass catcher, maybe you ran out of a trash bag, but for some reason you dumped it on the ground. And I've dumped like 2 or 3 of these back by my compost pile. I'm thinking I'm going to add it to my compost pile. And 6 hours later, or overnight, you come back and that grass has heated up. Have you ever seen that? What's going on with that? Sometimes if you kick it and you see this gray mold stuff growing on there, that is exactly what the bacteria and actinomycetes are. They're at the base of the food chain, and the first time that organic matter hits the ground on the earth, it can be leaves falling, grass, it can be animal manures falling on the ground. It's attacked quickly by these microbial populations. And then there's sort of a trophic feeding chain that occurs. And so these bacteria are grazed on by protozoa, these little microscopic animals. And it's a proven fact that one protozoa will eat 10,000 bacteria in one day. So there's sort of this feeding chain. They're all after food, they're all after carbon source. And when protozoas eat bacteria, they take what they want and they poop out the rest. Well, that poop is food for plants. It's amino acids that are converted into nitrites and nitrates and so forth. So then nematodes are feeding on bacteria and fungi, mites are feeding on nematodes, springtails, and then finally up here are insects and earthworms, and then like one bird, okay? So below us is this huge pyramid of microbial life in the soil. Here's the soil microflora. This is microscopic. You can't see with the naked eye. You have bacteria, actinomycetes, algae, fungi, and these are workhorses. They can do enormous amounts of different functions in the soil. They can fix nitrogen. They can make phosphorus available, phosphorus solubilizers. They can convert nitrogen into a plant available form. They can decompose organic matter. They can etch minerals out of rocks by exuding strong organic acids. So this is what they do. And so all things are regulated by these guys. Enzymes that are so important for functions in chemical reactions are produced by microorganisms, by these guys. Okay, next is the soil microfauna. These are the nematodes and the protozoas that are eating on the bacteria and the fungi. You also have mites and springtails. And then you have the macrofauna. This is what you would normally see crawling around in the leaf litter. Springtails, centipedes, earthworms, and so forth. Now, what is helpful to know is that soil microorganisms live in association with roots, and they excrete nutrients and sticky substances. And this is universal. Everywhere on the earth where plants and animals grow, there's a soil food web. And when they are living in association with each other, where the roots are, they're in contact. There's a whole microbial population living in contact with the root surface and the leaf surface. These organisms are excreting these sticky substances, these polysaccharides and gums and sugars. And they're also involved in nutrient cycling, biological disease control, pest control, etc. So here's a couple examples. Here's an alfalfa root, and it's got the bacterial rhizosphere that you can see that's glowing. That's all living organisms living in association with the root. Here's another one. This is the mycorrhizae I was talking about. These are the symbiotic fungi that live in association with the roots. Now these guys, these are the vesicular arbuscular mycorrhizae, the VAM mycorrhizae, are very interesting because over the roughly 450 million years that land plants have existed on the earth, they have co-evolved with these organisms. These particular fungi no longer live freely in the soil. They develop spores, and then when a plant root is passing by, they germinate and they will grow into the root, and that's how they do it. They do not live by themselves anymore. They only live in association with plant roots. Okay, so they can go millimeters and centimeters out into the soil, and they're like tubes that can pipe in nutrients and water back to the plant. So this is, it extends the surface area of the roots, and they actually can acquire phosphorus and zinc and copper and things from the soil, from the clay complex and the humus complex in the soil, and feed it back to the plant. The plant, by photosynthesis, produces carbon substrates and feeds it to the fungi. And that's why it's symbiotic, and that's why it's beneficial. That's why you want this working on your farm. And so in organic agriculture, this sort of concept really fits together now, because it's been shown that mycorrhizae exist better under organic fertility management than under synthetic chemical management. Not universal, but often the case. Here's another one. This has been going on for eons of time. However, science only discovered this recently. USDA kind of figured this out in the last 20 years or so, but that is that there is a kind of a glue that mycorrhizae exude into the soil called Glomalin that totally increases the soil organic matter and holds the soil together. So this is another really important function that mycorrhizae play. So they think that as much as 30% of the organic matter that's in the soil is produced from this Glomalin glue, from these symbiotic fungi.